How long, O Lord? How long, O Lord? Have you ever asked that question? How long, O Lord? Have you ever been there?
You know what it's like to ask that question? You asking some version of it now even? And we are all too familiar with the waiting that this life in this world deals us. With another round of resumes to send out, or another round of chemo, another negative on another pregnancy test, another underwhelming first date, another specialist, another gray winter day, another shift at the same old job, or another afternoon staring at the four walls of a prison cell just waiting for the night to come. How can this be it?
There's a guy named Charles Spurgeon, and here's what one of his books he said. He said, the best style of prayer is that which cannot be called anything else but a cry.
You ever prayed those kind of prayers? God, if you don't show up, I got nothing in the tank.
And I don't know if you've ever been there, where you've spoken those kinds of honest and sincere words to the Lord. I don't think I'm going to make it without you. But God's not afraid to hear those words from his children. David was a man after his own heart. And he laid it out. He laid it out to the Lord exactly the way he felt. And he said, if you don't help me, I may die. Psalm chapter 13. It says, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemy say, I have prevailed over him. Lest my foes rejoice because I am shaken. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. But you'll notice that it begins with a voice of desperation. David begins this psalm by saying, how long, O Lord? He says, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? David feels forgotten by the Lord. How long is this going to keep going? Now here's a question we always have to ask ourselves. Was David forgotten by the Lord? No, he was not forgotten by the Lord. But did he feel forgotten by the Lord? Yeah, he did. And David wasn't afraid to communicate that to the Lord. This is the way I feel. He isn't necessarily saying, that this is the situation, but he feels forgotten and he feels like the Lord has hidden his face. And David, furthermore, feels like it's been going on forever, which elicits that question, how long? Now, we need to introduce the idea that God does not forget his children. God cannot forget his children. He said so. Let me show you Isaiah chapter 49. He says, can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has borne? And then he goes on to say, though she may forget, in other words, in some extreme and extraordinary circumstances, although she may forget, yet, he says, I will not forget you.
I was speaking about preachers. Another preacher said to me who was in a hard spot, he said, I know that God put me here. I just wonder if he remembers where he put me. God knows where you are. The very hairs of your head are numbered.
Now, keeping in mind how David started this psalm, and you saw how desperate it was. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? Check out these last couple of verses. But I have trusted. Notice that's past tense. As David begins to speak now here toward the end of this very short psalm, he says, but I have trusted in your steadfast love. And it's kind of as if David is saying, I've trusted you in the past, and there's no reason for me to stop trusting you now. I've trusted in your steadfast love. So what's his conclusion? My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. Look at this turnaround. My heart will rejoice. But if my eyes are on the Lord, there's always reason to rejoice. And that's what we're told. Rejoice in the Lord. And so David is looking back on his past, and he's saying, God's been faithful. That doesn't mean there haven't been rough spots. But God brought me through. Pour out your heart to the Lord. But then when you get to the end of your prayer, and I'm preaching to myself just as much as you, let's bring it back to what is right. I will rejoice in God, who is my salvation. I will sing to the Lord, for he has been good to me. He has blessed me. Just such important reminders.
You're probably like David and you're saying, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? Will you hide your face? Must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart? And will the enemy prevail? How long, O Lord? Praise the Lord, though, that David doesn't stay in verse 1 and 2. David is now writing the last part of this psalm with a new song in his heart. He is rejoicing in the Lord. Today, there's many of you in the room who have been living in verse 1 for far too long. You've been saying how long a whole bunch, but you haven't been saying, I will trust and I will sing and I will rejoice to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. I just want to encourage you. And just like my sister would say, I know the 8-hour drive is long, but I promise the beaches are on the other side. I tell you today, I know the wilderness is a long way. The wilderness is hard. I'm just telling you, the Lord has great plans on the other side. I have 1,000 reasons to sing his praises. And I look back on my timeline and I say, look how God has been faithful. Look how God has been true. And I trust you and I'm looking to you for help in the middle of this. And find yourself rejoicing with a new song in your heart.